The table and graph represent the amount of money charged by two different jet ski rental companies at the lake. Both companies charge a gas fee and an additional fee per hour for the jet ski rental. Well, number one, to determine which company has the lower gas fee, you should compare the blank of both companies. So let's think about this. When would the gas fee be charged? Before you even start the motor up. Before you spend any time in the boat, you're going to pay a gas fee. So if you want to know who has the lower gas fee, you should compare the y-intercept of both companies. Okay, well, how do we do that? We only have one company, this Lakefront Marina. That's the only company that's graphed. Well, what that means is you're going to have to graph water sports on there. And so I'm going to change colors for water sports. I'm going to make water sports red. So let's take a look at this. The gas fee would be charged before the boat is even used. So that would happen at hour 0. So if we look at the change from here to there, we notice that's 1. And if we go the same change to 0, that works out. So whatever the change is, since the change from 2 to 1 is the same as 1 to 0, and we want to know what the charge is at 0, let's see what the charge is from 2 to 1. Well, that's $50. It's a $50 difference. So that means to go to hour 0, you're going to have to subtract $50. And so if we take $50 away from 70, that's 20. Well, let's see. This is the X, and that's the Y. I know it's the X because hours time is always on the X-axis. And if we look at our graph, there we go. Hours, right there. And I think I'm going to highlight that instead. Alright. So, this is how I know hours is on the X-axis. So let's switch back to the pen real quick. So, if my hour 0 is here, then I know that my charge is going to be $20. And when I look at the scale and the cost, I see the increments go $20 per square. Alright, so I have my starting value. So which one is cheaper? Well, so it turns out that water sports gas fee is how many dollars cheaper? Well, Lakefront was $40 and water sports is $20. So water sports is $20 less than Lakefront. So to determine which company has a lower hourly rental fee, you should compare what changes over time? Well, it would be the slope. So how do we get slope? Well, first of all, we don't have to worry about Lakefront because that's already graphed. So now what we have to do is we have to take a look at water sports. We can pick any 2 points we want. I'm going to pick a couple easy ones. I'm going to pick 0.5 as my Y2, or I'm going to pick this as my second point. So I'll just write that there. And then, well, maybe I'll write it there. Here's my second point, and here's my first point. And I chose that because the Y, 270 and 70, it's going to be easy to calculate. So, my slope My slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's plug that in. Well, my y at the second point is 270. And I'm going to subtract the y at the first point, that's 70. Clean that up a bit. There we go. And then my x at the second point is 5. Minus my x, the first point, is 1. So this gives me 200 over 4. If I reduce that down, I end up with a slope of 50. So let's write the equation of the line. That way we know what to do. So let's make that 50 in a fraction. So y equals 50 over 1x plus, we already found our y-intercept of 20. So our y-intercept is really our starting point. And then let's plot another point. We want to increase 50 on our rise and 1 on our run. Well, to go from 20 to 70, that's a bit difficult. But now let's take a look and see. Let's go back before we reduce, because sometimes that's helpful. 200, we could rise 200, and we'd find 220 on the y-axis, and we could find 4 over on the x-axis. So let's make a line. So let's take a look at question 2. To determine which company has a lower hourly rental fee, you should compare the slope of both companies. So the hourly rental fee for it seems to be Lakefront Marina has the lower hourly rental fee, because as you increase in time, you increase along the y-axis at a lower rate for Lakefront Marina than you do for water sports. We notice that the slope of Lakefront Marina's line is not as steep as water sports. That tells us that although Lakefront Marina charges more for their gas fee, the cost per hour is cheaper. So up to a certain point, it's cheaper to go with water sports, and after a certain point, it's cheaper to go with Lakefront. And that's what graphing these two lines will tell us, and we can make that decision. So as it turns out, that Lakefront hourly rental fee is how many dollars less per hour than water sports? Okay, one more piece of information to figure out. We need to figure out what the slope, I want to read the graph to get that, what the slope of Lakefront Marina's line is. Well, let's take a good point to start with. Our rise, that's our y value. So if we look at the y-axis, we see that the y-intercept is 40. Well, so we've got 40, that's a good starting point. And if we find another easily identifiable point, we rise from 40 to 120, and we could go across to where we're above 2 hours. So from 40 to 120, that is a difference of 80 hours. And because we're going up, it's positive, because our positive numbers go up the y-axis from the origin. Well, let's take a look at the run. So we're here at 0 for the x value, and we need to come across to where we're directly below the point at which we selected for our y. And so that puts us right here. So that's 1.5. So if we take 80 and we divide it by 1.5 to get a decimal, we see that the slope is 53.3. Well, what is the slope of water sports? The slope of water sports is 50. We'll take 53.3, and we see that there's a $3.33 difference. So lakefront hourly rental fee is $3.33 less per hour than water sports rental fee.